say it.
Look, first of all, he's a great guy. We had a tremendous success before the election. I think it was his biggest interview ever, and over 300 million people. It was very good. She didn't want to do it. She decided not to do it because she's not capable. But I spoke to him 3 days ago. We had a great conversation, and all I'm doing, I have to keep.
Did he mention this to you? Did you guys talk about this? The ICE enforcement?
Yeah. Just had a good conversation. I think he's a great guy, and I think he likes me too.
Yeah.
So the fact that Trump spoke to Rogan on the phone just confirms that Rogan's an official mouthpiece of the administration now. And Rogan most likely spoke to Callen about it all too.
So weird, man. So weird.
As they're best friends forever at the end of the day. But tracing back to Callen's defense of Epstein here, by far the funniest part about Brian saying that it was wrong in New York to date 16-year-olds is that it all gets thrown out the window by his ex-wife, who he claims was the person who knew about all the underage disgustery that went down in New York prior to even meeting Brian.
Like, I want to call my first wife right now and ask her. I want to ask her one question. I want to say, when you were 16, was it hard to get into a club? She was a big...
Of course! I'm sure it was.
But of course not.
Yeah, but she's got such an inside look on this stuff. Watch this.
And so when he calls her on the phone, she literally says that none of that went down in New York ever. And the only times she saw that happening was in Europe, which completely shoots down everything Brian was saying before this.
Wow.
Let's just have a conversation with her about how that world was.
We all know.
Yeah.
We're all in agreement, B.
Hello. Now you were a big model in New York.
Oh my God, shut up.
I know, but you were a big model in New York.
Shut up.
And how old were you when you first went to New York?
24?
Okay, so did you know girls who were as young as 16 who were modeling in New York?
Not New York, but overseas, yes.
Overseas. And those, okay, and so when in New York, we were talking about this Epstein thing, right? This Epstein thing. And so,
We're in trouble. What's happening?
no, we're on a podcast, but I was just trying to say that New York back in the day it was all sex for sale. It was all insanity.
Mostly Europe. Because like when I lived in Milan.
So yeah, just a super weird hill to die on.
That's tough. That's that right there. That's tough. It's just like what we said in the Corey Holcomb video where we pointed out how men like this, they just make this shit up and they say it back and forth to each other and convince themselves that it's actually true, right? Kind of like how Corey was saying, oh, the best, strongest, fittest babies come from 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old girls. It's like, and this is not something unique to Corey. A lot of dudes in this red pill space that idolize virgin 16-year-olds, they all made this argument to justify their very strange, overt desires to have sex with girls who are as young as 16 through 19. They say, well, listen, that's just the way God created us. If this wasn't the case, why is it that they have the healthiest babies at 17? Right? They all believe this garbage. But the science doesn't bear that out. We see that girls under the age of 19 have a much higher risk of having given birth prematurely and the baby's not being healthy and as strong as when women have babies in their 20s. And so it's like, where are they getting this from? They make it up. They make it up and they say it back and forth to each other. And so now they just walk around and, of course, their audience, they just believe them and believe that they're telling something that is true.
Here for Brian. Not really surprising though, especially since he's in this circle of the ultra-elite billionaire reptiles down there in Austin. I mean, the guy literally flies around in a helicopter around Austin with his mega-rich pal all the time there. He also has a bit in his most recent dumpster fire of a comedy special where he talks about his billionaire friends in Austin.
You really want to be safe? You really want to be safe? You got to make money. Yeah, I'm talking real money. You know what I mean? I'm not talking Austin money. I'm talking Dallas money. Yeah, there's a difference, bro. Oh man, I'm talking billions. My buddy's a billionaire. That's ready for this. That's $1,000
I mean, Brian.
Where's the joke there? Where's the joke? That's not even a joke. I was waiting for the joke. Where's the joke? It's just like, be rich. I got a rich friend.
Brian didn't get cornered into defending Epstein at all. He, in fact, shamelessly defends that creepy circle with his chest out. And the craziest part is that he actually believed people would buy what he was selling here. And the more he talked, the worse it got. And that's what makes it so unbelievably creepy to hear. Like, it's not just that Brian defended Epstein, but it's that he did it in a way that exposes how he really thinks. Then you layer in the Rogan connection, the phone call he had with Donald Trump.
Why is Joe Rogan? He cannot be healthy, bro. He cannot be healthy. Why is he so red? Doesn't he just look like swollen and he's got his nipples just like punching through the fucking shirt? It's like, why is he so red? Why are his nipples so hard? Why does he look just so swollen? Yeah. It's crazy because he has all of these like these experts that come on and talk about health and nutrition and shit. He's into jujitsu and fitness and all that. You would think this man would be like the embodiment of, and he's not a billionaire probably, but he's super rich, right? Worth hundreds of millions of dollars. You would think he would just be the picture of health, but no, weird.
Trump and the Austin billionaire bubble, and it all really starts to look like there's a pattern here.
I mean, look at him, bro. Look at this guy. Look at him. Just, what is this? He got orange paint on his face. This guy, has he just not figured out how to shave yet in his 50s? Like, what is that on his lip? Why is he holding his glasses like that? No one holds glasses like that. These men are just so weird, bro. They're just weird nepo babies. They both inherited ungodly amounts of wealth from their corrupt fathers. That's why they're rich. They're not smart. They're not innovative. They're just fucking, just nepo babies and weirdos, man. What the fuck?
Guys all protect each other, and when something ugly surfaces, they double down just like this, even if it makes them sound insane. So at the end of the day, Brian Callen's a deeply slimy and perverted individual. And honestly, it makes sense why his career's in the gutter now. Like, he's always complaining that he can't sell tickets, and then he never made it in Hollywood, saying that he's confused because he's tried so hard for over 30 years now. But then when he says stuff like
I'm gonna need like
this,
some
you know
backups, bro.
exactly why he didn't become a household name on the big screen. I mean, the guy's an alleged rapist and confirmed PDF protector. So
Being a
now,
PDF is
crazy.
crazy.
Just remember that this is who he actually is.
I did have a very
That's okay.
I have a very famous
We love you,
Hollywood
Brian.
person tell me why he thought I didn't make it, which I won't say. But anyway,
That's mean. Brian, you made it.
It was interesting.
Brian, shut up. You made it.
Well
said
you had a
I
sitcom
depends on you mean made.
on it. Three
Yeah,
sitcoms.
yeah, you were
And
in
TV
movies.
and movies.
Brian,
You
they
crushed it. Yeah.
Brian, you're
You're a failure. You're like bag because you're a fucking weirdo. That's it. That's the sad part. That's the sad part about it. You know what I'm saying? This is gonna be Sneeko in fucking 20 years if he don't shake well.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Just looking back at the past with regret, but never really taking full accountability. Yeah. So anyway, that's the video, man. That's the situation with Brian Callen. You let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and until next time, peace out. The Cult of Conservative Christianity. Video by LJ. Yes, sir. Another banger by LJ. I already know, man. He starts off the video with a little bit of a disclaimer, so there it is. You can pause the video and read it, especially if you're a Christian, just in case you're going to get your feelings hurt or some shit like that. But okay, let's go ahead and dive into the video.
When I was a kid, I would go to a summer camp every year called Camp Woodshake, which was a Christian summer camp program founded by the same people behind Chick-fil-A. It's like a 2-week thing, so you're staying overnight with a whole bunch of other guys. There's also a girls' camp, but you're separated, and then you come together for like one day to do a dance or a relay or something like that.
Okay.
It was like a mixture of faith-based teaching with like sports and games, and it was fun. It was a summer camp, but you basically had to go to church every morning and evening.
God damn, bro. Bro grew up in white Christianity. Yeah.
It was fun. It was a summer camp.
God damn. You ain't got no brothers in here, man, except for you. You look a little brown. This guy right here, you look a little brown. But yeah, he grew up in white Christianity.
Yeah, but you basically had to go to church every morning and evening, which I didn't mind. I really just sat through
You
it.
got to ride horses and shit.
Through all the games, and of course there were good teachings. Every now and then we dress up as Native Americans and
What the
this
fuck?
thing called council ring, where we sing songs. And looking back at it,
Dressing up as Native Americans is crazy. Okay, the fuck.
Interesting. I don't want to say they did this to be racist, but it's definitely insensitive.
What the fuck? Nah, gang, this is crazy.
And they have, of course, stopped doing this. I think there are pictures of me dressed in the, I didn't really think too much of it as a kid.
I mean, you were a kid,
So
right?
around
That's what it
2014, I was there for my summer session, and I had a question for my counselor. During this time, the U.S. was bombing Syria as justified strikes against ISIS, and this was a point in my life as a young man where I began seeing the effects of war, and this wasn't like movies, this was real life. I was seeing on the news and online pictures of dead children. As a kid, I felt bad. This was very depressing. So during that session of my summer camp, I pulled my counselor aside and I asked him, "Hey, counselor, there's children, kids the same age as me that are being killed, dying in this part of the world. And from what I see, a lot of them are not Christian. Most of them are Muslim. I know our faith says that those who do not believe will go to hell.
Right, yeah.
What happens to these kids when they die? And some of them probably didn't even know what Christianity was. They're not Christians. What happens to them when they die?" And he looked at me, and I felt like he was disappointed to say, "Well, they go to hell." And that probably wasn't the best answer that he could have gave me, but in retrospect, these counselors were kids. I mean, technically, they were in college, but like as a kid, I was like, well, that makes sense. But that's always been something that I've always thought about in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
Now, this video isn't about personal faith or spiritual beliefs. I want to analyze what happens when Christian identity becomes a political weapon. Because despite the counselor telling me this, somebody told him this when he was a kid, probably.
What a cruel fucking God, right? If that's what you believe, right? These people are born into a war zone. So their lives are objectively more difficult than your cushy life here in the West, here in America, especially if you're a white American. But not only did they grow up and have to live in a worse environment, completely of no decision making of their own, they also then die because they got bombed or shot by an American soldier or an American drone, and then they get to spend the rest of eternity burning forever in pain and anguish in hell. And God, he orchestrated all of that. But he's good. God is good all the time.
And somebody told them that, and I feel like that's just the wrong way to look at things. However, make no mistake, many Christians themselves reject the nationalist, bigoted politics that we're about to examine.
Texas, I'm officially vowed to become your next congresswoman. So the choice is yours. Vote for me so we can kick every dirty Muslim out of Texas. Save your
What the
daughter
fuck?
from being raped by Muhammad and protect those children
Oh.
from getting murdered in broad daylight.
Go back. That's the APAC building right there. White Christian men are not going to sit around while you turn our children into a bunch of niggers.
What the fuck?
I mean, like, no thought crime. Like, I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm gonna be like, boy, I hope he's qualified. The Great Replacement Strategy, which is well underway every single day on our southern border, is a strategy to replace white
rural America with something different.
I am opposed to tolerance. Tolerance is not a Christian virtue. And love, in the Christian sense, is
See that? Love that sentence. Tolerance is not a Christian virtue. Completely true, right? Sounds just like when Jesus said, pray for your enemies, right? Do not resist an evildoer. Turn the other cheek. Yeah, very intolerant, that guy.
different from the kind of love that people talk about. When he saw things that he didn't like, he literally cracked the whip. He brought the whip out. You know, and
What
that
the
is what he wanted us to be, which is strong and assertive Christians, and to hate evil and to love goodness. This is a country that is in love and infatuated with evil and hates, frankly, goodness.
Oh.
An attack on Christianity or spirituality. I want to talk about particular state-backed political ideology that uses Christian symbols and language to demand dominance.
It's about the forces of evil versus the people of Jesus Christ. It is so refreshing to hear his name in American politics.
In the United States, Christianity is often weaponized as a tool of political power or racism, a way to claim moral authority, rally followers.
That's the way it's always been, though. Let's not pretend like Christianity has been hijacked by racism. Christianity has been reworked by black people and progressives to make it somewhat like tolerant and a virtuous belief system, but that's the remix version.
As for the policies behind this secret facade, I want to make one thing clear. I don't think America has a Christianity problem. Christianity is not the problem. America has a power problem that has co-opted Christianity and wears it as a disguise.
Respectfully disagree. Christianity is a rotten ideology that has been salvaged by decent people, but it is what it is.
And you mentioned the Bible. You've been talking about how it's your favorite book. And you said, I think last night in Iowa, some people are surprised that you say that. I'm wondering what one or two of your most favorite Bible verses are.
I wouldn't want to get into it because to me that's very personal. You know, when I talk about the Bible, it's very personal. So I don't want to get into verses. I don't want to get into.
It means a lot to you that you think about or cite.
The Bible means a lot to me, but I don't want to get into specifics.
Even to cite a verse.
No, I don't want to do that.
Old Testament guy or New Testament?
Probably. Well, I think it's just an incredible. The whole Bible is an incredible.
So how did personal faith become part of this political machine that we see today? To understand Christian nationalism, we have to examine Christianity in America, how it evolved from belief system into social infrastructure.
I'm being trained with thousands of others here at Campus Crusade as a part of a Great Commission army to go out and spread the claims of Jesus Christ to the entire world.
At Campus Crusade for Christ, we recognize that aggressive Christianity is the only answer. We are training youth in this battle between the forces of God and the forces of anti-God to be revolutionaries for Jesus Christ.
When Martin Luther King is out in the streets agitating, why I agitate back. And the uniform is very good for agitating. For people are hearing, it's a mental battle of wits, not a battle of agitation. We can have our country once again free. We can have it once again white. We can have it once again Christian. And above all, ladies and gentlemen, we can have it once again a Christian American republic with a wholesome atmosphere that every American can be proud of us. Thank you all very much.
Well, this game affects the most intelligent of our children. And the pieces include white witches, wizards, necromancers, the clerics, that type of thing. It includes evil wizards. It's a white versus black witchcraft. The good versus evil is white versus black witchcraft. I mean, the gruesomeness of this game and the occult link to it.
Well, I know that when I did my message, and this has happened, I have letter after letter where people took the pieces. Now, there's sixes involved in the pieces of the game, but they take the pieces of the game, they would throw them in the incinerator or the fireplace, and screams would come out because there seemed to be some kind of spiritual forces inhabiting
Kelly, we've seen exactly why our country so dearly needed his example. We've watched legions of far-left radicals resort to desperate acts of violence and terror because they know that their ideas and arguments are persuading no one. They know that they're failing. They have the devil's ideology.
Now, in theory, Christianity is about personal belief, salvation, and moral teachings, but in practice, especially in the US, it has long doubled as a system of social order.
In this day, as in ancient time, there are some who have not been given the privilege at this point.
One must ask, why is it that Buddhism is not used in such a fashion? Why can't someone take Buddhist ideology, for instance, and create this, right? Create this kind of racist ideology, this kind of oppressive ideology. Now, even the Bible says it itself, right? A good tree cannot bear bad fruit. How is it that there are so many people claiming Christianity, believing in Jesus, praying to God, right? They swear they got the Holy Spirit. They're talking in tongues. They're rolling on the floor. They're fasting. They're going to church every Sunday. They're genuine believers. How is it that these people are so fucking wicked and evil and intolerant and hateful? A good tree cannot bear bad fruit. But hey, it is what it is. I guess the tree's bad, is what I'm saying.
Holding the priesthood of the church. Among those who do not have this privilege are those of African Negro ancestry.
The term priesthood requires some definition because this church has no professional clergy. Religious leaders are laymen, all males. At age 12, they are eligible for membership in the priesthood. Joining the priesthood is more important for Mormon boys than a christening for Catholics or a bar mitzvah for Jews. Young priesthood members serve communion, and only priesthood members can advance to positions of higher religious leadership. You cannot be a woman or a so-called Negro.
From the earliest days of European colonization, religion and governance were entangled. Puritans in New England enforced biblical law as civil law. Southern colonies used Christian justifications for enslaving Africans and subjugating Native Americans. The logic was that they were saving souls, even as they chained people up. In the 19th century, pro-slavery preachers routinely quoted scripture to argue that God ordained racial hierarchy. They preached that Africans were descended from the biblical Ham and cursed to servitude, or that slavery was a part of the natural order that God intended. Christianity did not invent racism. It just gave racism a sort of holy sanction. It baptized racial hierarchy with verses and sermons, offering a moral alibi for economic brutality. And even after slavery, during segregation and Jim Crow, many churches, especially in the South, functioned as pillars of the status quo. Segregationists held up the Bible to claim that mixing races violated God's plan. Well into the 20th century, politicians defending segregation or opposing civil rights often did so with a Bible in hand.
Well, the God of the Old Testament is racist. He handpicked a group of people, the Jewish people, and made them the chosen people. He only revealed his laws and his ways to them, allowing the rest of the world, I suppose, to live in sin and ignorance for, I don't know, thousands of years. And then, when a Gentile woman came to Jesus and was asking for help, Jesus literally told her, here, let me read you verbatim what it says. This is Matthew chapter 15, verse 21. Let's start here. Jesus left that place and went away to the district of Tyre and Sidon. Just then, a Canaanite woman from that region came out and started shouting, "Have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David. My daughter is tormented by a demon." In her announcing that she sees Jesus as Lord, Son of David, she is professing her faith. She's saying that she believes in Jesus as some kind of holy figure, some kind of spiritual figure, legitimate figure, anointed by God. But he did not answer her at all. All his disciples came and urged him, saying, "Send her away, for she keeps shouting at us." Because again, once you understand the history of how this religion developed, you will understand that this went from being a spin-off of a Jewish sake of appealing to non-Jewish people, it was opened up to Gentiles. To be just for the Jewish people. They're telling her, send her away before she keeps shouting after us. Now, these are the people that are following Jesus. You would think that they would know better. No, are these fucking retards? Or are they actually practicing the religion properly? He answered, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Jesus only came to bless, to teach, to help the Jewish people. But she came and knelt before him, saying, Lord, help me. She had to come on her knees and beg. He answered, even in her on her knees and begging, this is what Jesus says to her. It is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs.
Jesus.
Now, I don't know about you, right? If some black person went to a white person and was asking for help, right? Asking for government assistance, and then Trump said, it is not good to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs. Y'all will be calling him racist, but Jesus said he not racist.
How
Now,
you
of
even say
course,
Ben?
much of
Can
this shit is, it's all
you
over the
know?
place. The Bible is a book
Can
full of fictional
I'm
stories and
nah, bro. I'm
contradictions
giving
that
you a
are trying to
nickname, bro.
communicate different
I
people and
cannot say that
ideologies.
name,
I'm
bro.
not saying that there isn't useful shit in here, but you have to understand what this religion is. She said, yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. Why did Jesus call her a dog? Well, he made it clear she was a dog because she wasn't one of the lost sheep of the house of Israel. That's why. Right? Jesus healed the people who didn't even believe in him. Jesus healed people who were not, they just knew him as a healer, but because they were Jewish, he healed them. Right? He didn't teach them. They came to him, they had leprosy, they just heard he could heal people. He healed them. No questions asked, no charge. Why? Because they were Jewish. This Canaanite woman, a non-Jewish person, comes asking for help. What does this good loving Lord do? He says, it is not fair for me to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs. Right? Then Jesus answered her, woman, great is your faith, let it be done for as you wish. Right? She had to rack them down. When she got on her knees and racked them down and accepted that she was a dog, then Jesus was like, all right, I'll heal you. And that's what these supremacists want, right? They'll give you some crumbs off the table if you're willing to rack them down. Well, and that's what I'm trying to show you, man. Now, understand, I believe Jesus is a fictional character. And I believe, sure, there may have been a man named Jesus, but not everything in this shit came from that guy. Right? There's useful shit in here. This is why I don't believe the Bible is the starting place of spirituality.
Nah, no way. I missed that. Right when I was trying to listen to the audio.
It's actually useful in the Bible. A lot of this shit is garbage, it's rubbish. But how can you tell me that Christianity doesn't have racism in it? The book advocates for slavery. It advocates for the subjugation and oppression of women. It does have racism in it. It's a 2,000-year-old desert religion. So this trying to I appreciate what bro is doing here. He's trying to not offend Christians, and he's trying to be like, no, Christianity is good and perfect and a wonderful ideology, but bad racists came along and corrupted it. No, it's so easily corruptible. Right? That's the problem. Like the American Constitution as it stands today is more rock solid than the Bible. It's very hard to use the Constitution in a way where if you take it at face value, you can use it to hurt other people and take away people's rights. And I mean the current modern updated Constitution, not the initial one that was drafted by the founding fathers. And so if this was a holy book written by God or guided by God, you would think it would be written in such a way where nobody would ever be able to take it and manipulate it in a way to justify evil like slavery and racism and Jim Crow and all of that shit and treating immigrants like fucking dogs and animals.
Bruh.
Right? Yeah. But hey.
Speaking of, quote, God's separation of races.
In the name of the greatest people that have ever trod this earth, I draw the line in the dust and cast it public before the feet of tyranny, and I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
would you say you're a segregationist?
Oof.
Yes, and I believe in long-term, my definition of segregation is and that is a segregationist, a person that loves his race enough, or other races enough, has enough of racial pride and integrity to want to preserve them. And I think a racist is one that doesn't care enough for his race or another race to where they don't care whether they're amalgamated or destroyed or not.
But as governor of the state of Georgia, did you go by the laws of God or by the laws of the state?
I
Go
can
by the laws
go.
of God and by the laws of the state.
As you see fit.
What is the...
When overt racism became socially unacceptable, the religious framing became even more vital. Instead of bluntly claiming white supremacy, many shifted to coded phrases like traditional values, law and order. The language itself softened, but the underlying intent preserved a social hierarchy. Now, at the same time, it's important to note Christianity has also inspired abolitionists, civil rights leaders, and social justice movements from Frederick Douglass to Martin Luther King Jr. Faithful Christians have fought oppression. That only underscores our point. The issue is not Christianity, it is how Christianity is used.
Christianity had the power. And so, in order to negotiate with the people in power, men used the framework of Christianity and tried to find ways to take the ideology and argue for, treating people better. You get what I'm saying? It's like I will, like when I'm talking to a Christian, for instance, I don't believe in Christianity. I don't believe in the Bible, more or less, right? I think, like I said, there is spiritual truth in there, but there's spiritual truth in the Quran, there's spiritual truth in many of the world's most ancient religions, but there's also a lot of bullshit in many of the world's most ancient religions. Well, I know the Bible, I would say, better than the average layman, right? If I'm talking to somebody and I know they're a Christian, and I'm trying to communicate with them and find common ground or teach them a concept or communicate an idea, if I know that there is a biblical concept that I can point to back up what I'm saying, I'll use it, right? Because I know that they claim to be a Christian, and so it is to have influence on them, or it should have influence on them if they really are a Christian. That's the thing. The Bible is filled with contradictions. For every verse you can find trying to justify your more progressive, tolerant view, I can find you 10 verses that have a more hardline, conservative, intolerant view. You show me the verse where Jesus says to turn the other cheek, then I'll show you the verse where Jesus tells his disciples to go and buy swords. You show me the verse where it says, in Christ there is neither Jew nor Gentile, slave or free, man or woman, as a means for trying to argue against racism. And then I just turn around and ask you, wait, so are you saying there's no such thing as a distinction between a man or a woman? Does God not have different instructions for how men and women should live? Is God blind to gender and sex? Obviously not. And so, that's a problem with this book. That's a problem with this religion. And that's why it's so conflicted. That's why there are a million denominations. That's why they can't agree on shit. And that's why it's so easily used to hurt people.
The faith can motivate radical love, or it can serve as fuel for those defending or attempting to defend a social hierarchy. American history shows a pattern whenever certain people with their power felt dominance threatened, be it slaveholders, segregationists, or nativist politicians. They turn to Christian identity and rhetoric to shore up their authority. Over time, this has built an infrastructure, churches, religious colleges.
I just realized that whole holding your hand up shit, it looks so much like a Roman salute. When they're holding that hand up and being like, praise God, you know what I'm saying? You know what they do in the church. Amen, brother, praise God. Don't that shit look just like a Roman salute when you really think about it? Because right here, I was like, God damn, these dudes just throwing up the Roman in fucking church.
Rhetoric.
And I was like, oh, maybe they just praying, right? This right here. I was like, are they praying or are they hailing Hitler? Kind of hard to tell the difference, right? Coincidence? I'm sure.
Shore up their authority. Over time, this has built an infrastructure, churches, religious colleges, media outlets, and political organizations intertwined in maintaining a particular social order. By the late 20th century, this fusion of religion and politics has been formalized into what we now call the religious right. Think of the moral majority in the 1980s or the Christian Coalition of the 1990s.
There's been a moral permissiveness that has frightened millions of people. Some deeper national yearning in the country, a turning towards spirituality, a yearning for morality. And now in the realm of politics, it has come into discussion. Americans want more than anything else this year in their president the spiritual quality.
The most important thing in my life is Jesus Christ.
Yeah, they love that shit. You see, here's the thing. You don't believe these people? You don't believe the most important thing in their lives is Jesus Christ? You think they're all lying? Right? No, it's true. And then they'll go around, turn around, and call black people the hard R. Wake up.
Is America facing its best
Wow.
years ever or a period of national decline?
They were essentially political machines. They realized that if you could mobilize churches, you could produce disciplined voting blocks, sermons, turned into speeches, issues like abortion, school prayer, and family values became rallying cries that were as much about identity and power as about genuine moral debate. The result
It's very much Christian. The Christian, going all as far back as we can observe in Christian history, Christianity, the religion of Christian, has always been anti-abortion. As far back as we can go in the religion of Christianity. So, how can you be a Christian and then support the Democrats who want to not only legalize abortion but make it easily accessible and safe everywhere? How can you be a Christian and be for the party that wants to normalize people who are a part of the LGBTQ community, normalize their lifestyle? How can you be a Christian and then be for the political party that wants equality between men and women when the Bible clearly tells us that it is man that is made in the image of God and woman is made in the image of man? Women are not made in the image of God according to the Bible. They're made in the image of man. They are a copy of a copy. This is why they are the weaker vessel, as the Bible describes them. They are the weaker vessel. Well, Christianity is not sexist, though. Right?
What was formidable infrastructure, mega churches that we know today, connected to political PACs, televangelists acting as kingmakers, and faith becoming a voting identity. Religion had not only become a personal guide, but it became a team jersey, a badge of political allegiance. So by the 2000s, and most certainly today, American Christianity and its dominant white evangelical form functions in many ways like a political party or a lobbying firm. It's an institution with vast networks of media, funding, schools, and voter outreach, all dedicated to advancing a certain vision of society. This is the context in which Christian nationalism thrives, a context where Christianity is not interfaith, it's outer identity linked to power. It's important to note that people are not born into this ideology. They're recruited and formed through a sophisticated pipeline. Decades ago, church attendance and family tradition might have been the main ways people adopted Christian nationalist views. However, today, there's an entire media and influencer ecosystem designed to shape Christianity into a political identity and draw people into the fold, especially young, impressionable people. Consider the world of right-wing Christian content online and on campus. Instead of Sunday school and sermons, we have Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok preachers and campus agitators who blend faith with partisan talking points. Outrage is the hook. For example, if you look at Turning Point USA and figures like Charlie Kirk, he wasn't a pastor, but he toured megachurches and universities rallying about how they, the liberals, or the secular elites, and the professors are attacking Christian America. In his rallies and videos, every political disagreement would become a clash between godliness and evil. He would frame a debate about tax policy as a question of biblical truth, or a university diversity initiative as an assault on Christian values. And young conservatives would eat this up because it feels rebellious and righteous, as if by owning the libs, they are doing God's work. Now, the genius of this pipeline is that it turns politics into entertainment and identity. On YouTube, titles like Watch Christian Conservative Destroy Liberal Atheist, it racks up millions of views. The viewer, often a very young Christian who feels culturally marginalized on a secular campus, they're not surrounded by other Christians, they get a rush of vicarious victory. Politics becomes less about policy and more about smashing enemies in this culture war cage match. And as this content grips people emotionally, it also reshapes their identity. I'm not just a student or a young person. I'm a Christian soldier in a war for my country's soul. Now that's powerful. Right. It taps into all the feelings of belonging, purpose, adventure, and faith. Don't get distracted now. This is also a business model. There's an entire outrage economy built on Christian nationalism.
This whole shit is just for controlling people and making money. That's the whole shtick. That's the whole enchilada. That's what it's for.
Influencers cry Christian persecution, and then they direct their viewers to subscribe, donate, buy merch, and attend their paid conferences. There's money in this. Churches sell books on spiritual warfare against the woke left. Online stores sell their t-shirts with slogans like Army of the Lord or Putting Christ Back in America. Outrage brings clicks, and clicks bring cash. Cash funds more content. It builds bigger churches. So how does a movement ostensibly about Christian morality latch onto figures like, Donald Trump, a man whose personal life and manners hardly exemplify any piety? During Trump's campaigns and presidency, he openly courted evangelical leaders, promising them judges who would, quote, protect Christianity, by which he meant outlaw abortion, curtail LGBTQ rights, and so on. In return, he asked for their blessing and their flocks' votes, and both sides delivered. Trump installed the Supreme Court justices they wanted, and they turned out an overwhelming vote for him. At the 2024 election, for example, over 80% of white evangelical Protestants voted for Trump, making them the most loyal Republican voting bloc.
The preseason. Let's just get everybody fucking sharpness up.
White evangelicals were the single most Trump-friendly demographic
Okay.
in the country.
So,
this is a result of years of messaging that political
I don't know
loyalty
who
is
be
a
playing,
mark
but
of
a
faith.
low-key
It's
buzz.
weird though. Many of these same evangelicals once claimed character counts on presidents, like back in the Clinton era.
Back to back is
And it
crazy.
seems that there are discarded concerns about adultery, vulgarity, lies, or cruelty. Why? Because Christian nationalism doesn't require the leader to be a saint, only to be a vessel. He gave them federal judges who handed down decisions aligned with conservative Christian values. He moved the U.S. Embassy to Israel and Jerusalem, pandering to end-times
Yo,
prophecies.
Ramolo.
He filled his rallies and
You
speeches
missed that?
about
It's
Jewish
wild.
heritage. He performed Christian nationalism, even if he doesn't even live a Christian life, and that was enough. Now, this reaches mystical proportions. A PRI survey in 2024 found that 2/3 of Americans who identify as Christian nationalist adherents believe that Trump's presidency was ordained by God. Think about that. For millions, Trump wasn't a candidate that they liked. He was literally chosen.
If you don't believe that Trump was ordained by God, you're literally not even a Christian. You literally don't even believe what the Bible says. The Bible literally says that there is not a single person who is put in a position of authority that wasn't put there by God. And so if you're a Christian and you have a problem with Trump being the president, understand you have a problem with the decisions that God makes. You should embrace the fact that Donald Trump is a president if you're a Christian because God put him there. If God wanted Kamala to be president, she would be president, at least according to your Bible. Again, let me show you. Romans chapter 13. Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God. There is no authority except from God. And those authorities that exist have been instituted by God. Therefore, so all of this, if you're a Christian, this is what you must understand. Everything you see ICE doing, everything you see MAGA doing, everything you see Trump doing, the Trump administration, what is going on in Venezuela, all of it ordained by God. If you believe your Bible, of course. Therefore, whoever resists authority resists what God has appointed. Whoever resists ICE resists what God has appointed. You out there protesting in the street, calling yourself a Christian, resisting ICE, you're resisting God. right? And look, and those who resist will incur judgment. Now, you tell me how, if I was a pastor, I can't spin this into a Sunday service saying that Alex Preddy and Renee Good brought their death upon themselves because they were resisting God. Explain that to me. Bro, this shit is easy, man. But hey, you know what I'm saying? It's what it is, though. I was fooled too, bro. Don't even feel bad. I was tricked too. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to wake you up. There's a reason you're here, right? There's a reason you're here, but it's okay.
Chosen by the Almighty to lead America. When a political leader is imbued with that kind of divine mandate in the minds of followers, it's almost cult-like. Well, it is cult-like. MAGA. MAGA, bro. MAGA. For Trump, these benefits are clear. He's got an army of intensely loyal foot soldiers. I mean, quite literally. White evangelicals and other Christian conservatives have extremely high voting and activism rates, a built-in turnout machine that can swing elections. They show up for him in high droves, and he knew that they would. And this arrangement shows that Christian nationalism is not about doctrinal purity or even religious consistency. It's about defending identity and power structure. The belief that the American state should explicitly be Christian, that the laws should enforce particular Christian moral views, and that political authority should rest with those who are true Christian.
The Bible said that we take the violence ticket and we take it by force. We are here and ready to take this nation back. And I believe without a shadow of a doubt, the only man that God has anointed here in 2024 to be the next president of the United States of America, and that is Donald J.
That's what the Bible says, though. If he was wrong, Kamala would be president. If God had anointed Kamala to be president, she'd be president. The reason Donald Trump is president right now is because what this man just said is absolutely right. That is, of course, if you believe the Bible. But I'm going to leave you to contend with that.
Are you ready, America?
At its core, it's a narrative that America was founded by and for a certain type of Christian, usually implied to be white, Protestant, and conservative, and that this arrangement needs to be preserved or restored. Christian nationalism says America belongs to us, to the Christian in-group. Our culture, our religion should dominate public life, and if you disagree, you're not a real American. And opposing our political agenda is tantamount to attacking our faith. The hierarchy is at the heart of this ideology. It's about who sits above
members, bro, buying jewelry with Trump's name on it. Yeah. But MAGA is the new swastika. It's the new KKK, so it is what it is. It makes sense why they're so fanatic about Trump merch and MAGA merch, because it's the modern-day white hood.
In society, Christian nationalists believe that in a divinely sanctioned order, men are above women, Christians are above non-Christians, native-born are above immigrants, straight above gay, and commonly white above non-white. And not every Christian nationalist will admit to the racial part, but it's deeply embedded in the history and dog whistles of the movement. The idea of a real American in this framework has historically meant white and Christian. During segregation,
they already show you through the whole example with Jesus and the Canaanite women and all that, how that is not like a very far-fetched idea, though, that you could take from the Bible. He separated the Jews from everybody else, turned them into the chosen people. I mean, he used white people to bring black people the truth of Jesus Christ, right? And he decided to do that through slavery. So slavery can't be that bad if we got the truth of the Lord Jesus Christ in return.
She was explicit. White supremacists argued that God created separate races and wanted them separate. However, in modern times, overtly racist language is less common, but it survives coded as talk about, culture or heritage or Western civilization. If you listen closely when they say restore America's Christian heritage, there's often an undertone of restoring a time when others, or non-whites or non-Christians, knew their place. It's also telling that anxiety about demographic change often correlates with Christian nationalist sentiment, as white Christians have declined from an overwhelming majority of U.S. populations in past decades to around 42% today. The cry of Christian values being under attack has grown louder. By framing it as a religious fight, they avoid explicitly saying white people are losing dominance, but the subtext is all there. Let's make one thing clear. The United States was not founded as a Christian nation by law. The Constitution never mentions Christianity, and in fact the Founding Fathers explicitly forbade religious tests for office and established a secular government where church and state were separate. The First Amendment prevents the government from establishing any religion as official, and the Founders, influenced by Enlightenment ideas, wanted to avoid the bloody history of European religious wars and state churches. They knew the dangers of mixing clerical authority with political power. However, Christian nationalists today either ignore these facts or try to rewrite history.
Here's the reality. America was not founded as a religious, a theocracy, as a Christian nation because Christianity is so contradictory and convoluted that even the white people who were there in America couldn't agree on how Christianity should be practiced. But they weren't, the founders weren't these religiously tolerant people. You know what I'm saying? They weren't like, oh yeah, come Muslims, come Sikhs, come Buddhists, come Hindus, come atheists. No, very early on, we can see various people who are running for president being criticized for being an atheist, right? So, for instance, let's take Thomas Jefferson, for instance. Now, Thomas Jefferson was literally one of the founding fathers and the third president of the United States. Well, check this out. Thomas Jefferson was heavily criticized as an atheist and an arch infidel, particularly during the 1800 presidential election, due to his unorthodox religious views and advocacy for the separation of church and state. Critics, largely Federalists, attacked him for rejecting the divinity of Jesus and biblical miracles, though he identified as a Christian. So check that out. From the very beginning, this was a culturally Christian nation. It was in fact a nation that did not want any political leaders who weren't Christian and who didn't hold to some approximation of orthodoxy. However, legally, in the Constitution, it was made a secular nation because Christians can't agree on shit. And so they understood that the only way they could accommodate all Christians and all the various forms of Christianity is if they just explicitly made it a secular nation. Otherwise, you're going to have some offshoot, some denomination that is going to be subject to oppression because they're not holding to the state-sanctioned version of Christianity, whether that ended up being Baptists, right, or Anabaptists, or Methodists, or Presbyterians, or, you understand? And so, yeah, that's the whole reason America isn't really a Christian nation, legally, and of course that is for the best. If there is a God, shout out to God for fucking making that shit happen. But in our reality, this has always been a Christian nationalist nation. This is the least Christian nationalist that we've ever been as a nation. Christian nationalism is the culture of America, and it has always been that. It's what justified slavery. It was used to justify Jim Crow. It's what justified segregation. It's what justifies this anti-immigration sentiment. It's what justifies the war in Iraq, in the Middle East. It's literally always been that. It's just because Christians are so fucking incapable of agreeing with each other and coming to a consensus on what this fucking book they believe in, they claim to believe in, says, that they couldn't make America explicitly a Christian nation because they would just fucking turn on each other.
Claims like the founders were devout men who intended biblical law to guide us. Now, that's a complete myth. Nevertheless, the Christian nation myth is powerful because it gives a sense of legacy and entitlement. We're just trying to go back to what America was always supposed to be. Make America great again. Now, it wouldn't matter unless ideologies can actually shape the world. And they can. For Christian nationalism, this all crosses over in legislation, court rulings, and public institutions. This is where the movement's abstract ideas turn into very concrete rules for everybody, whether you share the same faith or not. We've lived through a big example of this recently, the outlawing of abortion in many states. For decades, the religious right fought to overturn Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court decision that had protected abortion rights. In 2022, they succeeded with Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization, and numerous states immediately banned or severely restricted abortion, often with no exceptions for rape or or health of the mother. These bans were explicitly lobbied for by Christian organizations and justified in religious terms. The sanctity of life from conception as a religious belief. The result is women and girls in some states being forced to carry pregnancies to term against their will. And that is Christian nationalism in action.
That is not Christian nationalism in action. That's Christianity in action. Christianity has always held an anti-abortion stance, going back to the earliest writings we have from Christian teachers and leaders speaking on this matter. They have always been against abortion. This is not a Christian nationalist position. This is a Christian position. This is what I mean when I say bro is, and hey, I fought with LJ Heavy, and I know what he's doing. He ain't tempered like me. He ain't got bulletproof skin like me. He don't want the fucking angry, historically illiterate or unlearned black Christians that gonna get on his ass because you're misrepresenting the faith, brother. Da-da-da. But I'll tell you the real, nigga. This shit is how it's always been. Christianity has always been oppressive to women. Always.
What I'm trying to say is you can think of it this way. American theocracy does not need a pope. It does not need a supreme leader or a pastor. It can be implemented through laws, court rulings, and institutions like universities. Let's not forget public school battles. School boards have also become intense battlegrounds where Christian identity politics play out. There's fighting over sex education. Comprehensive fact-based sex ed is often gutted or replaced by abstinence-only curriculum championed by religious conservatives. More recently, the panic over critical race theory and LGBT.
Yeah, when we know for a fact that abstinence doesn't work, like trying to push for abstinence instead of safe sex, it leads to more teen pregnancies and the transmission of STDs. These people, they're delusional.
Pew-friendly books in libraries has been heavily driven by conservative Christian groups. They claim moral offense or parents' rights to justify banning books that acknowledge racism or feature gay characters, likening them to sinful or harmful material. Here again, religious morality is being used to restrict knowledge for everyone, not just their own kids. This is a form of imposing religion, meaning forcing others to live by your beliefs. This is precisely what the First Amendment was designed to prevent, yet through incremental legal changes, it's advancing. A large portion of the movement's energy comes from aggrieved entitlement, especially among young white men who feel they were promised authority, respect, and purpose, and don't receive it. Christian nationalism offers a simple explanation. Society didn't change because the old model was unjust or obsolete. It changed because liberals, feminists, and secularism betrayed God's plan. And that offers a solution. Reclaim patriarchy, faith, dominance, and home. In the nation. That's why traditional gender roles aren't really a side issue here. They're central. The movement is obsessed with reasserting hierarchy, especially male authority. Anything that disrupts that hierarchy, like women's independence, gender equality, or LGBTQ visibility, is framed as emasculation. And because masculinity is treated as a birthright rather than something earned or developed, the loss of it feels like theft. Once you've built an identity on God made me the rightful leader, the next step is predictable. You start treating disagreement as an attack, which is why a defining feature of Christian nationalism is persecution fantasy. Despite holding enormous cultural and political power, adherents are trained to believe that they are constantly under existential threat. Routine pluralism becomes oppression.
Yeah, because they have to tell themselves they're not the evil fucking demons that they are that just want to be violent and annihilate people, and so they have to convince themselves or try to gaslight everybody else into thinking that they're under attack, right? They're under attack, right? They can convince themselves and the people around them that are also Christian that they're under attack, then it's self-defense, right? And I don't know how they got self-defense from the words of Jesus. Jesus literally taught that you shouldn't resist an evildoer, that you should turn the other cheek, and in fact, the earliest form of Christianity was an explicitly hyper-passive ideology. But in all reality, that was just because they understood that trying to fight against the people that were oppressing them was a lost cause, and so they preached passivity. But now that Christianity is a dominant culture and has all the power, well, all of a sudden self-defense is a very Christian idea. But hey, man, that's the video. Y'all let me know what you think in the comment section down below. You know, on one hand, they say you shouldn't tear down somebody's ideology if you don't have something to replace it with. And the reality is I do have something far superior to replace it with. I would just encourage you to look into the concept of living from the end. I have a spiritual channel where I walk you through how this reality actually works, it's linked down below every reaction video I've ever posted on this channel. I'm not active on it because I've already given you all the information. It's not a religion. I don't have anything to sell you, right? It's not like a fucking scam like Christianity. And so you don't need to hear a new sermon every single fucking Sunday, right? Because I'm not trying to take anything from you. The information is very simple, very straightforward. However, people have been asking me to post on this channel again, and so I'm thinking of making a few videos just to communicate, you know what I'm saying? Because I've gone this entire year practicing what I preach, and I've reaped nothing but immense success as a result of it in literally every facet of my life. And, you know, I've learned some things that I think it would be good to share again. But, you know, I'm not some, like, unique source of this information. You can just search how to live from the end. If you understand that, you know, saying that's literally all the wisdom that you need in order to navigate this life spiritually, man. Yeah. But anyway, thank you for watching. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. And until next time, peace out.
Tate, Gaines, Fuentes, Nico, Waller, and Clavicular are not just speaking into a vacuum here. Their content is consumed by millions of young men who feel disconnected from dating, politics, maybe alienated.
I will say that there's an entire generation of men that failed their sons. Clearly, an entire generation of men that failed their sons. There are an entire generation of sons that look at their fathers and don't see, either they don't see anybody because no one's there, or if there is somebody there, they see somebody that is unimpressive, unremarkable. They don't see them as masculine. They don't see them as strong. They don't want to be their dads, man. And so they're turned into these fucking clowns, these losers. Most of them don't have kids to begin with. The ones that do aren't even there to raise them. And so it's pretty sad, man. The incel to alt-right pipeline. Video by LJ. Yeah, man, let's go ahead and check this out. You know this brother, he only makes bangers, bro. Let's go.
Alright, so recently this month, in January 2026, there was a video from Miami Beach's Vendome nightclub that went viral on social media. It showed far-right influencers Andrew Tate, Nick Fuentes, Sneeko, Myron Gaines, and Justin Waller dancing.
Nightmare blunt rotation. This is a tragedy.
And singing a song that they requested to be played in the club called Hail Hitler, a controversial song glorifying Adolf Hitler.
Fucking losers. He just don't got that confidence, that swagger, that aura anymore. You know what I'm saying? Not that he ever had aura, but he used to have this kind of, you know what I'm saying, this energy, and now he just looks, you know, he's a shell of his former self is what I'm saying. And it was a nigga in pink gloves that can barely box that took that shit from him. Crazy. Sneeko is so fucking lame, bro.
The footage, which was quickly shared across platforms, captured them chanting Hail Hitler in unison in the club and then later inside a van. And because of this, local officials actually got involved, and Miami Beach Mayor Stephen Minor demanded an investigation, calling the incident sick and deeply disturbing. The nightclub quickly apologized and fired several staff involved in playing the song and pledged to review security protocol. And in the broader public and press, this episode has been treated as another example of online radicalization spilling over into real life. a case where social media personalities were glorifying Nazi imagery. In the days that followed, influencers in the footage also began to waver. Andrew Tate denied any involvement in the chant, apologizing to anybody who was offended, and his brother, Trishan, who was also there, tried to blame Sneeko. When Sneeko also shot back at them, accusing the Tate brothers of being hypocrites, which just shows how fragile this whole far-right movement is. And in contrast, Myron Gaines openly flaunted the controversy.
Yeah, it's the right that always eats itself, bro. It's the right that always eats itself.
He ended up screaming, dressed as an Orthodox Jewish man, dancing to some parody song, and he later appeared on another stream wearing a KKK-style hood, and it appears he went absolutely insane after all this backlash. Nick Fuentes has likewise embraced all of this, as he's just now began releasing merchandise that endorses Jeffrey Epstein.
That I say Hitler is cool, everybody freaks out. He's not cool, he's very fucking a monster. Then I say, hey, let's be honest, Epstein's cool. Like, okay, he's an evil guy, he's a bad guy, but he is cool. And
who is still following this guy? Honestly, who is still following this guy? This guy thinks Hitler is cool, that was already bad enough. Okay, but racism, it's been around for a long time. But you a pro-pedophile doing all that? Who is still co-signing this? Sneeko, he said his favorite movie was fucking Cuties. You remember that? I mean, now it's all making sense now, man. Jesus Christ.
Okay, he's an evil guy, he's a bad guy, but he is cool. And people go, he's very fucking a monster, blah, blah, blah. And it's great. You cannot free think. Can I think freely? Can I speak freely?
And not only has he begun effectively selling Jeffrey Epstein-inspired apparel, but also has gone on to condone his actions in some way.
And listen, you're not ready for that conversation, but Jeff Epstein, not a pedophile. But you're not ready for that conversation. All of his victims, 14 to 17. That's not pedophilia. But y'all ain't ready for that conversation.
Meanwhile, kick streamer Clavicular has also
I just can't even summon the energy to even, like, really give a fuck about what this clown has to say at this point. Anyone taking Nick Fuentes, Sneeko, Myron Gaines, Andrew Tate, anyone taking these guys seriously in the big 2026, you fucking need to get your brain checked, bro.
On attention for his erratic on-stream behavior after all this. Clips would circulate showing him and his associates openly snorting ketamine during live streams and getting kicked out of escape rooms and something like that. And collectively, all these developments, the Tate's denials and blame shifting, Myron Gaines' anti-Semitic antics, Fuentes' endorsing Jeffrey Epstein, and Clavicular's drug-fueled streams have all deepened rifts and again just shown how fragile this far-right movement is. This incident has led members of their circle to either turn on one another or double down on controversy. The backlash has been so bad that even Kanye West stepped out and apologized for being so racist in the past few years. It's kind of crazy. What makes this episode more than just influencer drama is the audience. Tate, Gaines, Fuentes, Sneeko, Waller, and Clavicular are not just speaking into a vacuum here. Their content is consumed by millions of young men who feel disconnected from dating, politics, maybe alienated.
I will say that there's an entire generation of men that failed their sons. Clearly, an entire generation of men that failed their sons. There are an entire generation of sons that look at their fathers and don't see, either they don't see anybody because no one's there, or if there is somebody there, they see somebody that is unimpressive, unremarkable. They don't see them as masculine. They don't see them as strong. They don't want to be their dads, man. And so they're turned into these fucking clowns, these losers. Most of them don't have kids to begin with. The ones that do aren't even there to raise them. And so it's pretty sad, man.
Social life and really are just distrustful of mainstream institutions. And this incident in Miami was a moment where an online subculture briefly surfaced in public. The chants, the symbolism, the infighting, these are all expressions of a worldview that has been incubated online, and to understand why these figures resonate so deeply with others and why their behavior matters politically and socially, we have to understand the community that sustains them. And that community has a name, a history, and an ideology. The incel movement. Alright, so we have a lot of history to cover. So incels see themselves as men doomed to romantic failure through no fault of their own, and they blame women and society for their plight. Now, the term incel actually originated in 1997 as a gender-neutral support website for lonely people. Its creator, a Canadian woman known as Elena, intended it as a gentle community.
That's crazy. Incel? The term incel was coined by a woman? We get to thank women for the term incel? Oh, wow.
For anyone, man or woman struggling to find love. And as late as the early 2000s, that original forum was mixed gender and supportive.
There's something ironic about that, by the way. With most of these dudes who claim the label of incel, they hate women. And it's so funny they identify so strongly with a label that was invented by a woman.
After Elena left the project in 2000,
Or at
the male
least
participation grew and new forums began shaping a very different subculture. By the mid-2000s, incel forums proliferated alongside other online masculinity movements. Early hate-themed sites like PUAHate.com, a spin-off of the pickup artist community, and love-shy groups became havens for young men venting frustration over dating failures. From there, incel members migrated into broader networks like 4chan, Reddit, and dedicated forums like incel.co or Forever Alone, etc., where an echo chamber effect would begin to take hold. These forums would adopt more extreme content and ideas, and by this time, many moderators would openly praise mass murderers and even encouraged violent action against women. Self-identified incels in these communities would routinely idolize violent attackers as martyrs in their perceived war against a society that denies them sex, love, or status. And two of the most frequently idolized figures are Elliot Rodger and Alec Manassian. Elliot Rodger, as we've talked about, was a 22-year-old from California who in May 2014 killed 6 people and injured 14 others near the campus of UC Santa Barbara before killing himself.
If only Kick was around during the time of Elliot Rodger, he'd just be clavicular. You know what I'm saying? Like, clavicular is who Elliot Rodger would have been had Elliot Rodger been born like 10 years, 15 years later. You know what I'm saying?
A 137-page manifesto and YouTube video uploaded shortly after the attack, Rodger described his extreme hatred of women for rejecting him and of sexually active men for having what he called, quote, the life I always wanted. He called himself the, quote, supreme gentleman and lamented that despite his wealth, good looks, and etiquette, women ignored him. In his manifesto, he was obsessed with hierarchy, entitlement, and revenge. And in incel forums, May 23rd, the date his murders took place, is referred to as, quote, the day of retribution. Elliot Rodger is often called Saint Elliot.
Rodgers would have for sure been like a looks-maxing Groiper, bro.
In some of these circles, and Alec Manassian was a man who committed a van attack in Toronto in April 2018, who explicitly referenced Elliot Rodger in a Facebook post just minutes before his rampage. Driving in a rented van, Alec killed 10 people and injured 16 others, most of them women, and in his post he wrote, quote, the incel rebellion has already begun. All hail the supreme gentleman, Elliot Rodger. Police interrogation confirmed his admiration for Rodger and cited online incel forums as ideological fuel. He even claimed he was hoping to inspire further attacks and become a symbol for others in the incel movement. Some users revere Mark Lapine, who murdered 14 women at Echo Polytechnique in 1989 after stating he was, quote, fighting feminism. And this glorification of mass murder has served as both mythology and as a recruitment mechanism, as incel forums use these stories to validate their worldview that society is so broken and women are so irredeemably cruel that violence is heroic. Now, by 2017, the problem could
yes, let's fight feminism. The movement that's built on the idea that men oppress women and try to control them using brute force and fear. How do we quench this ideology? Oh, I know, let's use brute force and fear to oppress and control women. Stupid.
Or be ignored. The Reddit community, r/incels, was banned for its calls to incite violence against women. But the ban only scattered members to other venues, and today, incel ideology is a patchwork of despair and entitlement, as adherents believe that society is a rigid genetic hierarchy based on looks and wealth. In their worldview, a tiny fraction of men, which they call Chads, and women, which they call Stacys, to the top of this pyramid, attracting all the sexual attention, and the rest of society falls into a middle layer of normies, oblivious to anything, while incels themselves occupy the bottom rung and are doomed by biology. This is often summarized in pop culture terms, like taking the red pill, which means awakening to these harsh supposed truths, or taking the black pill, which is the belief that if, quote, you aren't born a Chad, then you can never escape rejection. Now, over time, the manosphere, a broader network of men's communities, has expanded to also include incels, and it encompasses pickup artist gurus, self-styled men's rights activists, and men going their own way, or neo-traditionalists. Alright, so let's get one thing straight. You're going to hear the word manosphere a lot, and it's important to understand that the manosphere is not a monolith. It ranges from actual self-help communities to overt hate forums dripping with fantasies of violence. Some men stumble into this world looking for dating advice, gym motivation, or emotional support in the face of loneliness or divorce. Others come seeking acceptance or brotherhood, and at first glance, many of these spaces actually offer that. Routines, rules, and rituals to help men feel in control of their lives. And you know what, the bottom line may be that a lot of these guys just need a positive male role model in their life, and it could be as simple as that. However, buried beneath the self-improvement are these communities where it's not about helping men become better, it's about convincing them that women and or minorities are the enemy. These groups share core beliefs that the system, or feminism or modern culture, is unfairly biased against men. The phrase "take the red pill" drawn from the Matrix will become their rallying cry, and in this subculture it meant to reject mainstream morality and embrace an anti-feminist reality. And like I said, this terrain has been linked repeatedly to real-world violence. Analysts now point out that many perpetrators of gendered violence explicitly mention incel memes or red pill ideology. Researchers have found that they are heavily networked online, essentially making them lone wolves, and the incel movement has seamlessly integrated with broader alt-right ideology, as recent examinations note that some right-wing terrorists combine anti-immigration nationalism with anti-women hatred in their manifestos, and in essence, online misogyny and white supremacy have become entwined in new and dangerous ways. Now, alt-right influencers attract these incels because they transform personal failure into political identity and sell that identity back as meaning. Whether they are true believers or cynical grifters doesn't really matter. Their business model depends on convincing lonely, alienated men that their struggles are not individual but systemic, and that someone else is to blame.
Females don't have independent thought. They don't come up with anything. They're just empty vessels, waiting for someone else to install the programming. And then they become conservative, liberal, feminist, whatever.
The irony is that's literally how you would accurately describe the average Andrew Tate fan. Is a fucking empty vessel who had to be programmed by Andrew Tate to learn how to think and how to see the world and how to see women. That's the ironic part of this shit. I mean, it's such a waste of time. You have to already be a misogynist piece of shit to even buy this, because even like a quick Google search, you could find all of the contributions and inventions that women over the millennia have contributed to society. If you actually learn anything about American history, you would understand that women played a crucial role in keeping the initial colonizers who came here to America, the Europeans. If it were not for the women that actually like fucking helped to keep that shit together, the colonies would have failed. And so this is just bullshit. This is so sad and pathetic and so weak.
Whereas they have multiple women. And the thing is that the reason why I have multiple women is because I have a certain type of mindset where I don't tolerate fuckery from women, and they accept that and they respect it and they get in line. That's just how it is. There's no negotiation.
Myron's a trick that pays for pussy, essentially. None of these women are actually into him. None of them are actually. They all see him as a wallet. They all see him as a business opportunity. None of them actually want to have his children, besides possibly trapping him into giving them money every month. But yeah, Myron could never actually get a woman to fall in love with him.
With girls.
I think about getting married, and then I think about women are so ridiculous.
Which is why the first woman he put on a pedestal and put in front of the world, literally, like, just like, I mean, I'm convinced she was cheating on him, but literally, as soon as the relationship was over, allegedly, the relationship was over before she went and got with Rollerblade Boy. Fucking a woman that really loves a dude, she is not gonna be outside like that with another nigga. like right after the breakup. Even if she going, you know what I'm saying, in her emotional weakness, go and get some like sympathy dick or whatever, go and get some rebound dick. She gonna keep down low because if she really was in love with you and she was fucked up over you, she doesn't want to like, you know what I'm saying, if you see her with another dude right away, then you know that you probably not gonna take her back. So if she really loved bro, she was really into bro like that, she would at the very least go 6 months to a year, maybe even longer, before publicly like making it visible that she was with another dude. The fact that she did that so quickly, moved on so quickly, she had no desire to get back with Myron. She was over that nigga before they broke up.
The idea of entertaining a woman, it just sounds like a fate worse than death, honestly.
Incels are uniquely vulnerable to this message. They're searching for an explanation.
What a fucking homo, am I right?
Dignity and belonging, and the alt-right offers all three in a single narrative of victimhood and superiority. By reframing rejection as oppression and insecurity as evidence of hidden truths, these influencers turn resentment into loyalty and anger into revenue. They're not only...
I shouldn't even put that on him. Now, I do believe Nick Fuentes is a homosexual, but I shouldn't even put that on, oh, what a fucking homo, because I feel like gay guys, they enjoy the company of women as well. You know what I'm saying? You're really just a weirdo. Because gay dudes and straight dudes, they all really enjoy the company of women. Of course, for different reasons. But it takes a certain kind of like just pathetic person that you just hate all women. Like you just hate women in general. Ugh, you're a weirdo.
Exploiting incels, they also cultivate a permanent audience of disaffected young men that they use as fuel.
Bro, I couldn't imagine being this kid's age and having that feeling. Like, bro, when I was this kid's age, girls were the most like fucking fascinating thing in the world to me, bro. Like, I remember being like this kid's age, and a girl I like gave me her fucking scrunchie, you know, the shit she put up in her hair. And I remember just having that, like, just smelling that shit and just be like, oh, why does she smell so good? You know what I'm saying? Like, and these niggas over here talking about, fuck the women, we hate women. This shit is a tragedy.
We love everybody.
At first glance, the manosphere and alt-right influencer world can seem politically irrelevant, just a chaotic online subculture rather than actually being a coherent ideology. But in reality, these communities have become one of the most effective political socialization engines of the digital age. Millions of young men are being introduced to politics not through institutions like schools, parties, or newspapers, but through streamers, podcasts, and algorithmic feeds that frame feminism, immigration, racial equality, and liberal democracy as existential threats. Popular culture has even begun to reflect this shift. If you haven't seen that show Adolescence on Netflix, it portrays how young teenage boys are increasingly shaped by online radical communities and algorithm-driven content rather than parents, schools, or traditional political institutions. Viewers are taught to distrust mainstream media, reject democratic norms, and view politics as a cultural war between real men and a corrupt elite. And the result is a generation of politically mobilized...
Bro, you see what this hat this nigga wearing says? Make men alpha again. This is so cringe, bro.
And a corrupt elite. And the result is a generation of politically mobilized individuals whose beliefs are shaped less by policy debates than by their own resentment. This has its tangible effects. Far-right rhetoric migrates from fringe forums into mainstream political discourse. Influencers shaping voting attitudes among the young male demographics. And extremist narratives become normalized within conservative movements. What begins as edgy content gradually becomes ideological infrastructure. And this infrastructure has already translated into real-world violence beyond the most famous incel cases that we talked about. In 2014, Fraser Miller, a white supremacist, murdered 3 people at Jewish institutions in Kansas, driven by anti-Semitic conspiracy theories that overlapped overlap heavily with modern manosphere and alt-right discourse. In 2019, Tobias Rathjen carried out a racist and misogynistic mass shooting in Hanau, Germany, after posting manifesto-style writings obsessed with demographic replacement and gendered resentment. In 2022,
Bro, being so like concerned about other people, like what other people got going on and what other people are doing. Like you're just on your own time on the computer typing up a manifesto. Oh, the Indians, the Jews, the blacks. It's like, bro, fucking go do some push-ups, guy. Go do some push-ups. Go wash your fucking. You have laundry to do, okay? Your room is a mess. Go clean up your room. Read a fucking book. Get a skill, huh? Start a skincare routine. You got so much fucked up shit that you need to address that's just in the mirror. Why do you give a fuck about what these people are doing over here?
Endron in Buffalo, New York, committed a racially motivated mass shooting after consuming extremist content and conspiracy theories online, citing far-right ideology shaped by internet communities like the Great Replacement Theory. In 2021, the Plymouth shooting in the UK was carried out by Jake Davison, who had engaged with incel and misogynistic content and expressed nihilistic views about women and society. These attackers were not coordinated members of political parties. They're products of digital ecosystems where hate, grievance, and identity politics are constantly reinforced. And the significance of these far-right influencers that we're about to talk about is not that they directly order violence, it's that they normalize the worldview that makes violence imaginable. What appears to outsiders as a group of unserious internet personalities is, in practice, a cultural and political pipeline, one that quietly transforms alienation into an ideology.
All cheating scenarios, 100% the blame is always on the female. Look after yourselves. Let's say put some makeup on. Do some burpees. Go fucking go. Sort yourself out. So you can end that confusion bullshit. While we're on subject of cheating, if your man does cheat, the most stupid thing you can do is leave him.
Alright, so the first person we have to talk about is Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate, who's a former kickboxer turned social media entrepreneur, he's become one of the most influential figures in the modern manosphere. He first gained his mainstream visibility on Big Brother UK in 2016, but was removed from the show after footage surfaced of him that appeared to show him physically abusing a woman, which is an allegation he has, of course, denied. And over the following years, Andrew Tate would build a massive online following by positioning himself as a hyper-masculine hustle icon. He would blend motivational rhetoric with misogynistic commentary and conspicuous displays of his apparent wealth. His rise was accelerated by social media platforms, but so were his bans, as he was permanently removed from Twitter in 2017 for violating rules on hateful conduct. Then in 2022, he was banned from TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube for content promoting misogyny and violence. However, after Elon Musk acquired Twitter, Andrew Tate's account was reinstated, and with mainstream platforms restricting him, Tate would pivot to alternative networks such as Rumble, Kick, Telegram, and True Social, maintaining a large digital footprint.
Bro, growing out a beard was the best decision Andrew Tate ever made, man. This fucking weak ass, like, mouth breather chin. I don't even know how anybody ever looked at this guy and thought alpha.
Despite his platforming, people like Andrew Tate's ability to migrate across platforms while preserving his audience illustrates how modern extremist-adjacent influencers can survive and even thrive despite coordinated moderation. He presents himself as proof that modern men can reclaim power through discipline, dominance, and wealth, while simultaneously portraying feminism and progressive social norms as existential threats to masculinity. Through subscription-based communities like Hustlers University and The Real World, Tate monetizes this worldview by selling, quote, alpha male mentorship, which has been described as just a pyramid scheme that has since attracted hundreds of thousands of members and generated millions of dollars per month at their peak. And from the outside perspective, you might be thinking to yourself, why would somebody buy this? It may seem unbelievable that men would pay for this, but the demand is actually real. Beyond Andrew Tate, there is an entire industry of expensive masculinity boot camps, dating coaches, and self-proclaimed alpha mentors that have emerged in this economy, with some
This is so unnecessary, bro. This is so unnecessary.
programs charging thousands of dollars for promises of confidence, wealth, and sexual success that are often exaggerated.
Oh yeah, Nothing screams masculinity like throwing a fucking tantrum and throwing furniture all over the place. Oh yeah. I would have fucking just fucking hooked that nigga right in his jaw, bro, right there. Would have slept him right there. Well, of course, at this point, they're already like in the cult. They're already brainwashed. They've already submitted to this guy. They're on the floor, ass up in the air. Just please, daddy, give it to me. That's them right there. They're already bought and paid for. So he's afraid of this guy. I would fucking hook that nigga right across the jaw, bro.
Tate frequently frames himself
I
as
mean,
a
he asked for
persecutor.
it, not because I'm some tough guy or nothing. He was like, let's go. I'm like, okay, all right. You said let's do it. Let's go.
Arguing that platform bans are proof of a, quote, woke conspiracy against masculine independence, while his own content openly validates anger, resentment, and entitlement among young male followers, and his influence has been amplified by scale, billions of views across reposted clips, millions of followers across platforms, and a global audience that treats his rhetoric as ideological instruction. And Andrew Tate appeals to incels because he offers a simple, emotionally satisfying explanation for their frustration. If they are lonely, rejected, or struggling with women, it's not their fault. It's the fault of feminism, modern society, and women themselves. His content reframes personal insecurity as injustice and turns vulnerability into a narrative of victimhood and entitlement, presenting himself as...
Yeah, that's another thing. These guys, they talk about masculinity. They're the biggest fucking pussies, the biggest fucking, like, victims on the internet. Because if feminism is the reason you can't get pussy, explain all the niggas out there getting pussy. Why feminism not stopping them? Sounds like a skill issue. Sounds like a you issue, right? See, these dudes, they simultaneously hold the idea of like naturalism and going back to the old ways and the jungle and alpha, but yet completely reject the idea that natural selection is just pricing them out of the market. They completely reject the idea that they just can't cut it because they're not good enough.
As the ultimate alpha male who conquered wealth, status, and women, Tate gives incels both a fantasy and a roadmap. Emulate my dominance, reject empathy, and reclaim power. Here, take these courses on how you could be an alpha male. His rhetoric also validates their anger without forcing self-reflection. For many incels, he's proof that their resentment is justified and that their desire for control over women is not only normal, but completely necessary.
What is, like, your goal? Like, what is the message that you're trying to send to men, young men?
To young men?
Yeah.
To get women back in the kitchen.
Get women back in the kitchen?
Yeah, to get women back in the kitchen, yeah. To have guys have the balls to finally stand up to women and say, you need to go back to the fucking kitchen.
All right.
Let's talk about Myron Gaines. Myron Gaines?
Yeah. You see, this is the reason why if there is this reality that, like, 20% of the guys are banging 80% of the women or, like, some shit like that. That's a statistic. It's this kind of mentality that's sending the women to those 20% of guys that are like, yeah, you know, fucking cook, make a sandwich, don't make a sandwich, I don't give a fuck. And then they're just like, okay, I'll take my panties off now. You know what I'm saying? Like women are not. Here's the thing. If these guys had the answer, these dudes, you would just see them, like, beating women off with a stick, bro. Where are the hordes of women that are constantly chasing these guys down? They don't exist because they're fucking losers. And women don't like them. You know what I'm saying? That's why they actually have to be based in Miami. Because they can only, like, deal with fucking gold diggers and literal, actual fucking sex workers. That's literally the only women that will give them the time of day.
This is the co-host of the Fresh and Fit podcast that was launched in 2020 as a hybrid of dating advice, financial motivation, and manosphere ideology. The show claims to teach young men to improve their lives, but its content has consistently crossed into overt misogyny. Myron Gaines and his co-host Walter Weeks routinely mock women's appearances, dismiss feminism as a societal threat, and frame modern dating as a zero-sum conflict between men and women. Gaines himself has argued that men should never treat women as equals, and has even promoted a worldview in which dominance is equated with masculinity.
Oh yeah, just leave, bro. Just get all the girls out here.
Come on.
Fucking hurting brain cells.
All right, come on.
The Trump interview with Gavin Newsom and shit. We're gonna do some political commentary. Fuck this shit, man. I don't want to talk to these girls. Fucking
all right.
These fucking retards out of here. At this point,
he can't even look at them as he's saying this shit though. That's such a fucking pussy bitch shit.
Man, I don't want to talk to these girls.
You know what I'm saying? It's like he's like a little fucking crybaby that doesn't even want to look at you.
Yeah, bro, man. Like, this shit is better that way, bro. Like, you got these fucking sluts 100.
Fresh is still fat as fuck. Like, what? How are these men supposed to be the role model? They can't even get Fresh in shape.
The body's coming in here talking shit, man.
Yeah. Myron Gaines' ideological framing was even formalized in his book, Why Women Deserve Less, which crystallizes his belief that romantic relationships are inherently transactional and adversarial. However, as Fresh and Fit grew, so did its conflicts with major platforms and critics. The podcast was actually temporarily banned by YouTube in 2022 and fully demonetized in 2023 for repeated violations of hate speech and harassment policies, forcing Myron Gaines to migrate content to alternative platforms. And now he goes onto college campuses attempting to grift and spark outrage. And this defines Myron Gaines' public persona. He markets himself as a mentor, empowering men to reclaim confidence and autonomy, while simultaneously normalizing contempt for women and flirting with far-right ideology, or even just embracing it wholly. His show's content shifted from dating advice to explicit political alignment, featuring appearances by Andrew Tate and Nick Fuentes, and adopting red pill language that casts feminism, multiculturalism, and liberalism as existential threats. His influence extends beyond entertainment into ideology and comedy.
Oh, very nice, baby. That's great, baby. You got donuts?
Oh, we got donuts. Yes, Ersky. Hey, man, you know what? Having kids ain't all that bad. Now that I think about it. Thank you, girls. Daddy's gonna take one, okay? Baby, was one of these for you? You want the white one? Yeah, she just took the white one from me. It's like I was trying to give her the chocolate one, and she was like, "No, I'll take that one." All right, thank you, girls. Bye-bye. Next time, get me a white one, baby. I don't like chocolate donuts. It's okay. It's all right. All right, bye, baby. Thank you. Love you. Yeah, I like chocolate cake and shit like that, but chocolate donuts, like, this shit is so fucking mid.
His influence extends beyond entertainment into ideology and commerce, as he sells courses, merchandise, and paid communities that monetize resentment as a product, where personal insecurity is again reframed as political grievance and sold back to audiences as a blueprint for masculine identity. Myron Gaines appeals to incels because he transforms their personal frustrations into a shared ideology and gives their resentment intellectual justification. Instead of telling lonely or rejected men to reflect on themselves, he tells them that the system is rigged. Women are manipulative. Feminism is the enemy, and modern dating is a scam designed to exploit men. This podcast offers incels something that they crave: validation without any accountability. Like Andrew Tate, incels see Myron Gaines as a teacher who tells them that their anger is rational, their loneliness is political, and their desire for control over women is not a flaw.
You know, women can really be two things. Women can be, well, let's say three. Women can be mothers, they can be prostitutes, or they can be nuns. That's really it. That's really all you got. But a woman's primary role is to have kids. That's it. People say, you think that women are just baby machines, baby makers? Well, primarily, yes. They're primarily here to be, to have sex. They're sexual creatures.
All right, let's talk about Mr. Fuentes. So, Nick Fuentes, as we've talked about multiple times now, is a far right.
I'm not going to take advice about women from a gay fucking virgin. I'm just not. Nothing he says can have any validity or merit. He's a gay virgin. Okay, but all right, let's hear him out.
A political commentator and the founder of the America First movement. He emerged from conservative youth activism into open white nationalist ideology. He first gained visibility in pro-Trump circles after 2016, positioning himself as a Catholic nationalist. Over time, his rhetoric has escalated from cultural war commentary.
All of these men hate their lives. No guy that's actually loving life can even find the time to fit this bullshit in their daily schedule, bro. Like, even if I agreed 100% with the shit these guys fucking preach, me personally, I just don't even have the time. Where would I fit time in to just participating in this bullshit? You know what I'm saying? I'm busy making money. I'm busy getting swole. I'm busy taking care of my kids. I'm busy having a good ass life. I'm busy playing video games I like. I'm busy like doing all this like biohacking. I'm into all kinds of like little biohacking shit that I just do throughout the day, like little just activities I do that's supposed to improve my cognitive abilities, my physical abilities, my recovery, just how good I feel throughout the day. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, bro, it's like I don't even have the time. Before you know it, the day is fucking over and I gotta start my nighttime routine to maximize my brain and maximize my fucking hormones and maximize my gains in the gym. I just don't have the time to do this shit. But that's because I love my life. I love my life. I love every moment of the day. I wish the days were longer. These guys, they fucking hate their lives. They got them. You know what I'm saying?
To explicit anti-Semitism, racism, and misogyny. He has repeatedly framed immigration as existential threat to white identity, even though he's Mexican. And as his ideology has hardened, he has become increasingly isolated from mainstream politics, but also simultaneously more influential within extremist subcultures, where his willingness to articulate, I guess, taboo views has earned him credibility as being uncompromising, even though at this point it's just come down to him being edgy and saying nigga over and over again.
Nigger.
Nigga this, nigga. His messages blend grievance politics with authoritarian social values. He frames feminism, multiculturalism, and liberal democracy as existential threats, while casting himself as a truth teller that's persecuted by elites. Yet his public persona is also riddled with contradictions. As I said, Nick Fuentes claims to represent the forgotten working class of white Americans, despite him also being a minority, and he does this while repeatedly scapegoating minorities and immigrants. He denounces establishment figures while seeking proximity to powerful political and cultural elites. He also criticizes other far-right influencers for opportunism, even as he mirrors their rhetoric and tactics. And in this way, he embodies a central tension of modern extremist politics. It's a performance of rebellion with systems that he simultaneously condemns and also depends upon. It's very weird. Like, you can't be a part of this subculture and also sell Epstein merch. It doesn't work like that, but apparently it does. Now, Nick Fuentes appeals to himself
because these guys have no fucking morals. They have no morals. They have no principles. Them MAGA Christians, no offense if you're Christian, not all Christians, but most Christians, they have no actual like principles or morals. They're just committed to the cult. And so whichever way the cult leader goes, they will follow. You know what I'm saying?
He also gives their personal frustrations political and racial explanation. He even proudly accepts the title, calling himself an incel.
You see these guys now, and they want to live a domestic life. It's absolutely pathetic. Like, it's embarrassing and it's sad. And I say that as an incel. Now guys are like, I can't wait to be a dad. I can't wait to be a husband. I can't wait to go to my kid's graduation. It's like, that shit is boring.
That was my principle. So when I say they have no principle, they talking about being a Christian nationalist. Christian nationalist when the Bible literally says that you should go for it. Maybe only multiple but yet, fucking, they will eat that shit up because they don't give a fuck about the Bible. They don't give a fuck about Jesus. They don't give a fuck about Christianity. And so, yeah, it's just all over. It's all a god.
That shit is fucking boring. You should treat me like an obligation. I just want to see my kids' recital because it's so meaningful. Like, men have become so sentimental. Sentimentality is not a masculine virtue, because that is for fat. Okay?
It's like Andrew King, Byron Gaines, Fred sensing a gender conflict, the influences reframes in the face civilizational crisis. He tells young men that they are not failing individually, but they are being replaced and being stripped of the power of feminism, multiculturalism, and global society, ideology.